Welcome back, everybody, to the Brawl in the Family Podcast, episode 11. This time we're talking about E3 2016, that big fancy event that, all of us get really excited for.
The fancy event that had so many different Nintendo games for us to look forward to.
So many games. Yep, that is my co-host and cohort, Chris Seward.
Hey guys.
And I'm Matthew Toronto. So, Chris, E3 2016. This was one that we had devoted about half an episode to a couple months ago about how frustrated we were with Nintendo not doing a normal sort of press conference or even a full direct.
Yeah,
they had kind of come out of the woodwork a couple months ago and said, hey guys, set your expectations low. I mean, they didn't exactly say that, but, you read between the lines. They said that Zelda was going to be the only thing they were going to show, and that the NX itself would not make an appearance, and that was pretty much it. They wouldn't have any other demos playable to the public besides Zelda. I was really going in with kind of really low expectations, I guess.
They really had to do that because traditionally their E3 show is a big deal. They talk about a lot of games. They show new games. They really surprise people.
So if they were going to do something different, it's probably good that they let us know before I bought my tickets to LA. That said, I will say this. This was not the worst E3 that Nintendo's had. In fact, I might say it's better than last year's E3.
Oh, wow.
Even though last year's E3 had a good amount more games, I mean, it was otherwise, I think, one of the worst E3s in Nintendo's history. Kind of down there with 2008, I believe, with like Animal Crossing and Wii Music and not much else. And I remember 2013 being a little on the weak side, maybe a couple others. But yeah, last year I thought was kind of the pits. The big game for that year was Super Mario Maker, which I was really excited for, but we had already known about from 2014's E3 when it was actually revealed. And Star Fox Zero, of course, ended up being pushed back, and we already knew about that as well. I think the only new games that we got shown were like Mario Tennis, which didn't look very exciting, and Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival. Kind of a weak lineup. However, this year, I think it's because my expectations were so low, but they showed a greater number than zero of games, I guess, besides Zelda, which I wasn't really expecting. And that includes, we got Dragon Quest VII, which I was excited for. We got a new series called Ever Oasis, I believe. This is by Grezzo, who did the Zelda 3DS ports. So they've had some experience working with the 3DS. It's an action RPG for the 3DS. And it looks all right. I mean, I watched the trailer. It's got this sort of Arabian/desert theme, which is kind of cool. Yeah. And they did a few other games. They did like The Legend of Legacy, which was kind of a popular game, and the Street Pass game Flower Town. So I kind of got my eye on this. It might be cool. And it was a new game, which is kind of not what I was expecting.
Since they told us not to expect any new games, it's nice that they had one.
Yeah, they showcased Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which, I complained about the name last time, but it's actually getting very good reviews, so good for it.
Yeah, as a Persona fan myself, I'm interested to play it.
But of course, the star of the show was The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. So we got our full trailer, which I was hoping for, because I didn't want the Zelda reveal to just be, you start off and Link's standing in a field and some guy's going, okay, so here's Link and we're running around. I want to see kind of that neat sort of choreographed trailer kind of showing what the game's all about, with the music and stuff. And we got that, and it looked really good. And we got a bunch of footage, like a ton of people playing it. For Breath of the Wild, it really feels like they're backing up their words. Almost everything that we know about the Zelda series, as of late, has been sort of tossed about willy-nilly or changed abruptly or dramatically. And it's really refreshing to see such a different take on Zelda, because it feels like Nintendo's got a lot of faith in this project. It feels like they realized that the Zelda series needed to be shook up. It's like they listened to our podcast from like a year and a half ago where we complained about all the little things in Zelda, and bam, 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 they just kind of addressed every one of those issues one by one. Look, I'm just gonna say it. This is my dream Zelda game. I have not been this excited for a Zelda game in an extremely long time. My favorite Zelda is the very first one, because I can go back to it over and over and play it in so many different ways. It's got this open-ended exploration. It's exactly what I wanted. And I've I'm actually a huge fan of the Zelda series. I don't really hate any of the games. I don't even dislike any of the games except for maybe the DS ones are kind of haven't aged very well. But I mean, even kind of the controversial ones like Zelda 2 or even Skyward Sword, I still get a lot of enjoyment out of those. So I love the series, but I have admitted that it needs to evolve and change and recapture some of that magic from the original game. So I've made a list, actually, of all the things that I like about Breath of the Wild, and I'm going to recite them for you right now, because who doesn't love listening to a list of things? Here we go. Number 1, no partners. That's pretty good, right?
Is that confirmed? There's not a sidekick in this game?
There is not a sidekick for Link. Like, not in the sense that someone that's always hanging around Link. You know? I mean, of course there'll be NPCs. There's probably a Princess Zelda or someone. You know, there's the old man. There's NPCs that you talk to. But there's no partners. You know what that means? That means a lot of things. It means, first of all, no partner that's saying, interrupting the action, saying, hey, you know, what if you do this? What if you push this block onto this switch? That'll open the gate. Wow, nobody's seen that before.
Yeah.
And you don't have someone saying, or speaking for Link, you know, which is important because it means that they're going to cut down on some of that kind of iffy, you know, storytelling stuff that doesn't always work so well in Modern Zelda. Anyway, it means a lot. It means a lot just from that right there. Yeah. Number 2, quick and painless beginning. I'm assuming the demo had the beginning there, but it's like maybe 3 minutes of dialogue, which is voice acted, by the way, which is kind of surprising. And then you get your clothes and you're on your way. Number 3, no hand holding. You go outside and it's just like, okay, time to go. Let's go find stuff, you know? You have little menus pop up saying what items do, but otherwise it's all up to you, you know? Which is exactly how Zelda should be. Okay, number 4, low emphasis on cutscenes and traditional cinematic storytelling. Chris, how would you describe Zelda's story? It's kind of tricky because some of the Zelda games have really good stories, but not really because of like the traditional sort of cinematic way, you know?
I agree. When Zelda has tried to do it, I think they've missed a couple important marks that would have made it more involving. Twilight Princess, for example, was a game that extended the amount of cutscenes in the game compared to previous games in the series. We'd seen it all before, you know, Zelda kidnapped by Ganon, and we gotta go fight Ganondorf. And I think that the most powerful kind of storytelling that Zelda could pursue is one that emphasizes keeping the control of the game in the hands of the player. The more you interrupt it with cutscenes and with dialogue where all you're doing is pressing A to go to the next dialogue box, the more you do that, the less engaging the game will be, unless you have a great story and great dialogue, which, you know, is kind of hard.
Yeah, and it was funny is Aonuma agrees there. Like, he's actually gone out and said that there's a huge emphasis on story discovery through gameplay, which is very much like the Metroid style way of telling story.
Yeah, which I think
traditional Metroid.
Which I think is fantastic. Like, I think that is in general an excellent game design principle that most games don't do, because it's easy for a designer to fall into the trap of thinking that story has to be portrayed as if it was a movie or as if it was a TV show or something where the audience is just sitting there watching something. Mm-hmm. But to convey a story through action and through details that the player can discover and put together on their own creates a much more powerful storytelling experience for a video game, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I think it's great that they're doing that.
Yeah, one of the details that I was really encouraged to see in the demo was that I think the only NPC in the demo was that old man who you meet at the beginning. And as you walk by him, you can see him speaking to you without taking control away from the player. You see a little text bubble above his head with some words in it. That's not forcing you to sit there listening to him. He's still talking to you while you're still moving around. It has baffled me that more games haven't done things like that. You should be able to continue walking through the game and experiencing it without being locked into something. It actually reminds me of a Chrono Trigger. There were some areas in Chrono Trigger where you could keep moving around while people were talking, and if you walked too far away, they would just stop talking to you. I'm surprised that more adventure games haven't incorporated that more, and I'm glad to see that Zelda's doing that.
Yeah, and it adds a nice little extra bit of quickness to it. And you don't even have to talk to him, you know, you go the other way. So anyway, I'm just going to blast through the rest of this list because I don't want to take too much time on this. But anyway, enormous beautiful world, the freedom to go almost anywhere at any time, incredible visuals, Link's expressions, lack of hearts and supplies from grass cutting, that's a big one. Hunting, cooking, gathering, physics-based gameplay, non-scripted events. You don't walk up to a boulder and press A and watch like this mini cutscene of it rolling down and everything. Yeah. You have to aim those trees, you know, when you're cutting them to actually make bridges. If you don't, it'll fall into the river. You don't move tiles with the magnet thing and watch a mini cutscene. Oh, the tiles moving the thing. Oh, it landed on the thing. Oh, the door's open, and that's amazing. All this stuff happens through the gameplay, and the player's in full control. That is awesome. That is exactly what I want. Combat. Yeah, we mentioned the combat looks more fluid than ever. There's this incredible impact on the hits. Like Link will roll over and he's holding his head, and it's got these sound effects that are really crunchy. Big flourishes when your weapons explode. There's a buttload of collectibles, each with their own purpose. You can steal enemy weapons like in Wind Waker. You can climb vertical surfaces. This is huge. This lets you go anywhere. Like, you can't just put a wall here and say, okay, you can't go there. Climb that wall. I'm climbing it. And heck with you. And you get multiple ways to approach most situations. There's a stamina meter's back, which I liked, and it's implemented smartly because you can climb, you can parasail, you can shield surf, and Ganon is back instead of Ganondorf. What a great freaking game! I'm excited. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, you can climb almost anything in the game, right?
Oh yeah, you can climb. I don't think there's nothing you can't climb except for like the slick inner walls of like the shrines, which there are over 100 of, by the way. So yeah, I mean, I can go on, but I'm super psyched about all the positive feedback and all the things that they've taken. You know, they've sort of evaluated the Zelda formula and distilled it into something new and refreshing, and it makes me really look forward to the future of the series. So, good job, Nintendo!
When we were young, we would frequently talk about how great the Zelda series was. We were both huge fans. You were a fan of the original game. I hadn't played that until years later, but it seemed like the series that could do no wrong.
I mean, this was around the time like Majora's Mask came out. This is like in high school, kind of.
Yeah. Like we'd play Ocarina of Time and Link's Awakening, and I remember we were on that bus ride and we played Link's Awakening the whole time.
Yeah,
that was pretty
great. Was fun.
But my love for Zelda hit the rocks around the time Twilight Princess came out, and I was not feeling the series for a while. It was disappointing and sad because I had been looking forward to every Zelda game like crazy for years. But after Twilight Princess, some of the handheld games, and Skyward Sword, I wasn't really feeling it anymore. But A Link Between Worlds definitely rekindled my excitement. I loved that game very much, and I was very encouraged that Nintendo seemed to be understanding what Zelda needed to be.
Yeah, it kind of feels like they borrowed a few of those design concepts from Link Between Worlds.
Yeah, and I really hope that they took that as a learning experience and saw how right that game did many things. And if they're applying that to this new game, I think it's got a great foundation to build off of. What I love so much in these games is the freedom of exploration that many games try to give you, but very few games actually succeed with.
There are games with large worlds that exist. Xenoblade is a good example of a game with a very big world with a good amount to do, but there's something about the Zelda series that the core gameplay and the core design, how you have these, you can have this feeling of exploration, but you also have this really tight and fun combat. You have these really smooth controls. You have these well-crafted out puzzles, well-thought-out sort of scenarios that combined with that open-world gameplay and something that Breath of the Wild is really bringing to the table, which is interactive environments, like the trees and the climbing and the parasailing. It really feels like it's taking that open-world gameplay to the next level. You know, it's mixing that largeness with the Zelda gameplay, which is why so many people are excited for this, even if they've, you know, or don't have much interest in Elder Scrolls, you know, Skyrim or whatever.
I haven't played much of Skyrim, but I've played Oblivion, I've played Fallout, and a number of other games. Simply having a large world does not equate to an interesting experience. Games with a large world that have relatively dull core gameplay, it becomes a chore to merely traverse the world. Like, oh geez, I have to walk all the way over there. That's just going to be boring because I know that there's not going to be anything interesting between here and there. Mm-hmm. That's one thing I'm interested to see more about in Zelda. I want to know, are there going to be a sufficient number of events in the world so that traversing from point A to point B is always an interesting experience, even if I've done it before. And that's one thing that we discussed previously, I think in a previous podcast, where we were talking about this game before we knew anything about it. We'd only seen the announcement.
From what I've seen, this is going to sound like kind of a weird comparison, but I was reminded of Super Mario 64 when I was watching the gameplay of this game, when I was watching, you know, footage of people playing. It feels like, in the sense that the world is kind of this playground. You know, you have this large open world, but you can get from here to there in several different ways. You have all these tools at your disposal that let you manipulate the environment. you've got that iron thing, and you can kind of mess with time and physics somehow. I couldn't really make sense of it, but like there's like one of the runes that you get like freezes time, so you can smack a boulder and make it hit a mountain or something crazy like that.
It's sort of like it freezes time for it. So if you hit it 10 times, it's basically applying the force of 10 strikes into one moment. So
which is almost like a beautiful Joe-ish kind of concept, I think. But yeah, there's stuff like that, and there's things like the parasailing and the actual jump button, and it makes it look like if I was playing Mario 64 and there was kind of this big rolling hilly area, it would be fun to run around in, because it's fun to control Mario in Mario 64. You've got a few different moves at your disposal. You've got like all the different jumps and stuff. It's just fun to control them, and this game looks fun to control Link. You're not controlling this kind of stiff RPG character that just runs and picks things up.
I think that's a very key point.
I do agree that there's a risk of it being losing interest depending on how the land is laid out, but so far I'm very optimistic about that aspect of the game.
Yeah, look at a game like Fallout 3, for example, or the Saints Row games, or Just Cause, or Far Cry 3. All of these games have very large worlds, and as you progress through them and explore them, you kind of accomplish mini objectives throughout. So when you go back to that area, everything is kind of solved, and there's not those challenges there anymore. And I think that is an area in which games run the risk of becoming a little dull, because you're turning areas that used to be interesting into areas that are kind of boring because you don't have interesting things there anymore.
Kind of cleared them.
I think there's a lot of possibility for a game to do that in an interesting way, to have procedural events that feel natural, that feel like they still add life to the world without feeling like chores. For example, like almost like a Skies of Arcadia kind of thing, where you have discoveries that fly all the way around, and things that happen very rarely or that you can track down, and
so like specialized events that will happen semi-randomly.
Right, so like semi-random, but with more significance than just a random cluster of enemies. Okay,
so sort of like the big octos in Wind Waker. Every now and then you'd have this octopus come out, and it would give you a significant upgrade if you killed it. It's a big monster. Those aren't actually random. They had designated spots on the map, but they could feel random if you don't know about it.
Right.
You don't know that going in this spot triggers that boss fight. Okay, I can see what you're saying. Guess we'll just have to wait and see. I'm hoping that the core gameplay is fun enough. Yeah, hopefully Zelda can keep that kind of interest going with the world. It's just it's a big task to have a large world and have it constantly teeming with life even after you've explored an area. So we'll see.
They didn't overpromise how big this world was going to be.
The
size of the world at E3, the demo world that people could play, they said was only about 5% of the entire game world. They would like zoom out on the map and show you how big it really is. So this, like, if nothing else, the size of the world is really impressive.
Yeah, and I mean the size of the E3 actual world they're talking about was extremely large. I think from the videos, it looked very vast. I mean, if I took 5% of one of the other Zelda games, Overworlds, it would not be very big. But this was a significant size, and it looked like there was a lot to do. There was a lot of variety to it.
The game has clearly been inspired by other open world adventure games from the past 10 years. There's a big focus on crafting.
Well, it's been in the Zelda series as well. I mean, it was in Skyward Sword. It was in, to a lesser degree, in the DS games.
Breath of the Wild seems to be taking it to the next level. They're really, you're collecting things constantly as you play the game. Pretty much everything you interact with, you can turn it into some sort of craftable item. They show that the menus in the game are very complex. There's a number of different screens in the menu that organize the different items you can collect. That's actually something I'm a little concerned about. For instance, there's you can eat food to regenerate your health, but that means in the middle of a battle, you're going to be pausing the game to flip through the menus and select the food to eat it, which in the footage that we've seen kind of looks like it's interrupting the flow of the combat a bit, which I'm a little worried about, especially if that's going to be a constant thing. An extension of that is that if different weapons in the game, in the demo, they demonstrated probably a dozen or more different weapons that Link can find.
Yeah, they're not all just weapons, they're like things he happens to be using his weapons, like a twig or like
it's like improvised weapons, things that are just items in the world, like you said, twigs or the arm of the enemy, like, which are really cool in concept. But what I'm worried about there is that each one of them has a different like attack rating that you can see in the menu, and they all have durability. So I'm curious to see how much of that item variety will boil down to just picking the best weapon all the time, or if most of your weapons are going to be wearing out after a few fights, then actually having to constantly be changing weapons as you play the game could be interesting. But, once you get a Master Sword or something, I'm not sure why you would really be doing that.
I mean, I guess I think those two problems kind of cancel each other out, though. If you have something that's stronger than a different weapon, I mean, eventually it's going to break, and then you'll just switch over to whatever else you got. And it seems like, from what I've seen from the demos that people have been playing, the weapon switching is pretty seamless. Something will start to break, and then they'll just throw it at the enemy's face, and it'll explode in this crazy effect and deal a lot of damage. They'll just whip out the next thing or pick up something else on the ground. It feels like there's a lot of improvisation. Like, you can't get too attached to any one item. So this Zelda game is one in a long line of big Zelda E3 events, right?
Yeah.
I got a little mini timeline here. Would you say E3 with Zelda kind of started really with the Wind Waker demo, right? That was
in terms of a big announcement that was really exciting. Probably. I do remember, though, for Ocarina of Time, I remember reading about it, I think, in GamePro magazine or Electronic Gaming Monthly or something, where there was, pictures of the announcement and very early pictures of the game.
Link fighting the really shiny-looking Armos or whatever. Yeah. I remember kind of absorbing that, Ocarina of Time information as well back in the day.
Yeah, but I think in terms of a big, seismic event, the Wind Waker was the first big one where it was a giant announcement that had a huge ripple effect.
Yeah, Wind Waker was 2001 Space World, and I think it was the last Space World, possibly because of Wind Waker, because it blew up the internet. But then in 2002, they did have a Wind Waker demo that kind of made a lot of people more on board with the game. It kind of showed Outside Island and some of the fighting and stuff, some of the sailing. And, I mean, that was like 2002, and the years after that, we had like Four Swords Adventures. But I think the really big E3 Zelda reveal that kind of everyone remembers is 2004's. Which was Twilight Princess. Yeah. So Reggie shows up. It's Reggie's first appearance before he became president of Nintendo of America. He was this big internet meme. Remember?
Yeah.
Like, everyone was talking about how manly Reggie was. It was like Chuck Norris before Chuck Norris.
Yep.
And he was talking about like the DS, which was this awesome reveal. And here's a bunch of other games for the GameCube that are really great. And then it ended with this mind-blowing Twilight Princess reveal, which made everyone love Reggie and love Nintendo and love E3 2004. And the reason was because even people that really liked Wind Waker, like me, still kind of wondered what an Ocarina of Time type game would look like on the GameCube. And that Twilight Princess reveal was like, boom, here it is. It's crazy Link in this grown-up world. It's so mature, and it had the really exciting music. And it was really exciting. I mean, it's a major event. You can go watch the videos on it. People are freaking out in the audience. I've never seen any game reveal that blissful or euphoric. I don't know. You find some synonyms. It's like super exciting.
It was incredibly exciting. There was comparison pictures of the IGN staff of before, at the previous E3 and then at the E3 for Zelda. Like that was huge on the Japanese forums. And
that became like a running gag.
Yeah, for many years. Heck, even probably till today.
I did Around the Family based stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's very iconic. How
well-known it was.
Yeah.
But it's pretty accurate. 2003 was a bad E3, and 2004 was great.
Yep.
Now, the weird thing is, Nintendo didn't really follow up Twilight Princess with a very big Skyward Sword reveal. The way they showed Skyward Sword was in 2009. They pretty much released this one picture, this one piece of concept art, saying, hey, we're working on Zelda, take a look! And it's like, okay, here's Link with his back turned, and kind of this mysterious new sort of ghost-looking girl character. And that's all we had for a year until Skyward Sword was revealed officially with the playable demo in 2010, where Miyamoto took the sword and showed that it could do one-to-one stuff, but then it freaked out on stage.
Yeah.
And Miyamoto got really upset. But otherwise, 2010 was actually a really good E3 as well. While we're waxing nostalgic, it had Donkey Kong, it had Kirby's Epic Yarn, it had Kid Icarus Uprising. It was still a solid E3 even with the technical snafus. 2013 did have the Link Between Worlds reveal, but it was kind of during the Direct, and it was, in my opinion, pretty unexciting.
Yeah.
And then the game came out and it just blew us all away, so that's okay.
Was that the year with the symphony?
That was 2012.
Because we were there for that, right?
That was 2011. That was the 25th anniversary, and that's when they had the Skyward Sword playable demo for everyone to try out with the birds and stuff. Yeah, that was actually that's a good point. That was kind of a big event because they had the symphony playing, all the Zelda music, and all the stuff going on the screen. It was good. That was actually when the Wii U was revealed as well.
Right.
So along with the Wii U came a Twilight Princess style realistic Link demo where he was fighting the Armagoma. Remember that?
Yeah.
That never really became anything because Breath of the Wild ended up kind of adopting its own style, but it was cool looking.
Yep.
And speaking of Breath of the Wild, 2014, which we've discussed on this very podcast, was when we first got our glimpse of the new Zelda, and I'm pretty excited to say that they stuck to that template that they originally showed us.
Yeah.
And had promised. So yeah, that brings us to this year with Breath of the Wild's big giant blowout that I'm a little sad I missed, but it also would have cost me like $600 for plane tickets and hotels. So I can wait, I guess, another year and a half or whatever. When do you think this is coming out, Chris?
I would say,
like, realistically,
I'd say mid next year probably. It looks like it's it's in clearly a playable state. You know, they had a fairly sizable chunk of the game that could be explored and played. Yeah. I would say, I think March. It's not going to come out in March. I don't think that's going to happen. Like August would be kind of nice. Nintendo said that the NX was coming out in March, which I don't believe. I don't think that's. Nah.
I don't think they're gonna release the NX without devoting an E3 to it. And March just happens to be at the end of the fiscal year, and they said this during a shareholder meeting, so it seems fishy, you know. Yeah. So I'm expecting the NX. I hate to say it, but I feel like that and Zelda are gonna come out holiday next year.
I could see that. I'm
setting my expectations kind of far away, which is a bummer because I really want to play this. But there we are.
I bet you they'll do that Best Buy thing where they have demos to be played around the country. I think that's likely.
I was hoping that would happen, during E3, but kind of didn't. So I'm going to quickly mention what I've been playing, which is the Zero Escape series. 999 is a DS game that's a visual novel that involves 9 people all trapped in a sinking boat, and they have to escape with their lives. It's a pretty dark game. It's one of the few M-rated DS games I've played. It's got some pretty grisly descriptions of gore, and it's got very strong language for the kiddies. It's a little bit more of an extreme Phoenix Wright, but I actually really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I got all the endings. It's got some huge twists, and I'm now playing the second game in the series, Virtue's Last Reward, which was on the 3DS, which I'm also enjoying. And the final game in the series, Zero Time Dilemma, I think just came out yesterday, as of this recording. So I'm looking forward to getting that too. But overall, I've been really liking these games. They're pretty intense, and they have some good characters and some good storytelling.
The new Doom title, I've been playing that for the last week or so. Doom.
Now, yes. Chris, you did not like Doom 3 at all, did you?
No, it wasn't very good.
So how's the fourth one? Is that what this is? Doom 4?
I mean, technically, I suppose, yeah.
Does it have a subtitle? What's it called?
It's just Doom.
Oh, I don't like when they do that. I mean, I get what they're going for, but it's like, now it's confusing, you know?
Yeah.
Now everyone has to call it Doom 2016. Oh, that's so great. That's why did they do that? Why do they call it Doom?
Pop culture is frowning upon numbered titles because I think each progressive number appeals to a lower number of people. So if, like, for instance, if they call it Doom 4, you have lots of people who are like,
I haven't played the first 3.
Yeah.
Oh, man, you're making a good point. So why not, like, Doom Reloaded or Doom Revelations?
That would be acceptable. I think a lot of games still do that. You have some sort of subtitle that's some dumb word like that. But I think when you reboot it to a basic title, it's trying to start a new series. So if they make another Doom, they'll probably call it Doom Reloaded or something dumb like that. But they won't call it Doom 2. They'll call it Doom something.
You made a good point there. I think you've reached the merits of that weird renaming thing that happens sometimes.
Yeah, the game is quite good. There's a number of design issues with it, I think, but the core gameplay is really fun. I wasn't expecting it to be so fun. I'd been kind of skeptical of the game because basically the first gameplay we saw was this multiplayer alpha, which looked like Halo combined with Call of Duty, maybe? I don't know. It was like a Halo sort of thing.
It sounds like a match made in heaven.
No, it was kind of stinky because it's kind of floaty and slow, and it just looked really generic and uninteresting. So I was like, wow, what the heck did they do with Doom? This looks terrible. But when the game actually came out, it was getting a lot of positive word of mouth. And I was still kind of on the fence. Like, yeah, I liked Doom 2. I liked the old shooters. But the new Doom goes back to basics. It embraces fun action-based gameplay that's really fast, as opposed to Doom 3 where you have cutscenes and stuff that go on too long. Usually it lets you just walk away from a cutscene. The animations of the protagonist, it never leaves his eyeballs, and when he interacts with things, he'll, something starts, a little panel on the wall starts talking to him about some sort of cutscene, and he'll smack it and break it. Little things like that, they make you feel like, oh yeah, he doesn't give a like, I want to go kill demons. Now, unfortunately, the game doesn't embrace that the whole time. It does lock you in a few cutscenes that I'm just sitting there like, why can't I just break out of this? Why do I have to listen to this stuff? So it's not perfect. There's a number of issues with the game, but the core gameplay is really fun. There's like heavy metal, and you're like killing demons, and it's a very kinetic game. You're constantly moving forward and killing demons.
It almost sounds like they tried to make it this big event in the third Doom, and then they just kind of realized that not every game has to be like that.
Yeah,
you just kind of get in there and start blasting stuff.
That's a good way to put it.
And that's one of the appeals of the NES and a lot of the SNES era is that games didn't really have that pretense. Sometimes you don't need that.
Yeah, you turn on the game, and 10 seconds later, you're just blasting enemies, and that's the game.
And the way Zelda kind of, the new Zelda sort of does that same thing as well. I mean, it's obviously it's testosterone filled and explosive, but it's the same principle in that here's where you are, now go off, have fun.
Yeah, I feel like since the late 90s until now, really, it's been the trend for games to try to cram all this junk in there to get it in between you and the gameplay. But this year, we're seeing games that are actually stripping that back and actually just being like, hey, let's just get the player involved with the game immediately, strip away these things that aren't making the game more fun.
You're right. It's like a pendulum swing, and this happens a lot in the game industry. I've noticed when something becomes popular for too long, it'll swing back, and people will be like, I miss how things used to be. I miss these 8-bit games, and that's why we had so many 8-bit games for a while and side scrollers and stuff.
Yeah, and the main thing I would say about it that connects it to Mighty Number 9 is that the core gameplay motivates you to just keep running forward, killing demons, and not dallying around. Yeah. Which is great, because in a lot of shooters, you're kind of motivated to sit back, squeeze off a few shots, not get hit. If you run out of ammo, you have to go find ammo somewhere.
If you get hit, you gotta go wait.
Yeah, it's like a waiting passive experience, which isn't fun. But Doom is brilliant in the sense that you actually gain health and ammo from killing enemies.
Oh, okay.
So you're exploring a level, and you come into a situation where a bunch of demons spawn. 95% of them are well-designed arenas that have a lot of vertical space, for instance. So you run toward a wall and you jump, and if it's low enough, you can grab it and you immediately pull yourself up. So there's a vertical element to the game too. So you're constantly running through these labyrinths with all 3 dimensions.
So it gives you some different options.
Yeah, but you're constantly moving, and you want to go towards the enemies because you shoot them, and then when they're low enough, you can finish them off and get some bonus health from them. Makes you feel very powerful and very active and very engaged in the action. It's really good. There's other problems with the game that I don't need to go in here.
But you like that design element.
I really do.
Like core gameplay.
And I'm going to touch on that again when we talked about Mighty Number 9.
All right, shall we start?
I think we should. Mighty Number 9 was done by Keiji Inafune, who is one of the original designers of Mega Man. He had built his reputation up as being the Mega Man guy. Everyone was hoping that this game would continue the legacy of Mega Man. Everybody loves the old Mega Man games, and even some of the more recent ones, like the X series, had some good games. And some people really like the Legends games, and when Legends 3 was canceled, that was a big blow to a lot of Mega Man fans. So I think they were really hoping that this would be a return to the core of what makes a good Mega Man game. Which, like we just said about Zelda and Doom, like these games did that, or are doing that successfully, hopefully. They're going back to what really made those games fun to begin with, and kind of
still bringing them into the modern game.
Yeah, taking them to the next level, and with more modern design considerations, but not straying from a really good core foundation.
Right.
Mighty Number 9 really failed to do this. I am kind of baffled with a lot of the decisions they made in its design. Overall, I'd say the game has a fairly cheap sense of difficulty. Comparing it to old Mega Man games or old NES games or any sort of arcadey game where you have a boss battle or an enemy, when the enemy does a move, a good design telegraphs the move to the player. So they'll do a sound or an animation and then do a move so that you know what kind of move it is, and maybe you get hit the first time and you start to learn how to deal with these different challenges. And the game is essentially a big ball of these different challenges. So you're gradually learning things about new enemies, new stage hazards, and new abilities. You'll get hurt a long time and die a couple times, but the idea is that you are learning how to do well. So as you get better, you can you could play the level again and just blaze through it and do really well. And I think that would be the goal of a game like this.
Okay.
But Mighty Number 9 is filled with lots of instant deaths, and instant deaths that are
I noticed that too.
That are confusing and not clearly communicated to the player. So it feels cheap. It feels like I didn't deserve it, which I'm usually a very laid back sort of gamer. I don't really let games upset me, but this game caused me to slam my controller down multiple times and say some pretty blue words.
Do you have some examples? Well, not of the words, but of the cheap deaths.
Yeah, like, okay, this one that pops to mind immediately is in the electric stage. There's this these big spinning blades that kind of pulsate with this purple light.
Right, and the purple light is an instant kill, as I learned the hard way.
Yeah, and there's one section of it where you have to slide under 2 of them.
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. I'm going to get to the dash mechanic in a bit, but a lot of the core problems with the game are connected to the dash mechanic. Basically, what you have to do in this section is you have to dash under these 2 big spinning wheels to get to the next section. It should be pretty easy, right? You just dash under them, and there's a little space in between them so you don't die in between them. But what happens is you walk to the very edge of the purple thing. You're like, okay, I'm not touching the purple thing, so this is about as close as I can get. And you try to dash, and you die. And you're like, wait, what? I can't dash any farther than that. Is there something I'm missing? Is there something else I need to do? And then you come back, you try a couple different things, and it doesn't work. So after I got a game over, and I came back, and then I tried to see how close I could possibly get to it. And so I kept walking it, and I'm like, you get to the point where number 9 is covered. He's almost halfway covered by this pulsing purple thing that you thought was an instant kill.
Yeah,
Which,
you had a bad experience with this.
What on earth?
All right, what helped me here was that I had already done one of the challenges where you have to like slide under some stuff, and I was confused because I was like, why isn't he sliding under this particular thing? And that's when I learned you have to hold down to do the crouch slide. It's different than the regular dash.
Right.
So I knew that going in, but I still died on that part because the timing for it is weird. Like, you have to get all nudgy, you gotta get all snuggly with that thing.
Yeah.
You gotta get all nudged up against it, get all close and cuddly, and then you gotta do the dash, and you barely make it. And he's sort of, when he comes out of his dash, his slide, he's sort of, his head's still like touching the other end of it. So it's very vague as to where the actual hitbox is of these things. It's not made very clear. So yeah, it would be good if the level had taught you how to do the ducking slide prior to that at some point in a safer environment, rather than suddenly throw it at you, so you had a situation like yours where you died several times and I had no idea what the problem was.
Because you can't duck and move. You know, if you press down when you're just standing there, he doesn't make any movement.
Right.
You basically had to walk much closer to this spinning blade of death than you thought was even possible. And
Right. The hitbox is weird.
Yeah.
So that's one example.
That's one example.
I'll give you one.
Okay, please do.
The mighty number, I don't remember the number, it's like 4 or 5, the drilling guy, the underground level, has a couple spots where there are death spikes, below you, which is a pretty standard thing in a game like this. But the problem is it's similar to a problem in the horrible, accursed game that one day we'll talk about. But Mega Man X6, that bane of my existence.
Yep.
It reminded me of that, and anytime a game reminds me of that, it's not good. In that the camera does not show you the death spikes until it's too late.
Yeah.
The ground sort of curves downward, like, okay, I'm supposed to go into this tunnel. All of a sudden I die. What the heck? And as it turns out, before I even have a chance to react, the screen had scrolled down to show me, oh, there's spikes at the bottom of this pit. So spots like that just feel unfair. I like difficult games. I've beaten Mega Man 9 like maybe a dozen times, and I've done it once without continuing, and that's a hard game, but it feels like every death is your fault.
Right. You
have a appropriate amount of time to react and see the danger that's clear to you before you suddenly die. And there's a few spots like that.
I definitely agree with that. Another part of the electric stage that had something like that is near the beginning, you get to the end of a hallway, and there's all that's in front of you is this pit that goes straight down. You're like, it feels like I shouldn't be falling down a pit, but, and you walk forward and you're like, oh, okay, I was supposed to fall down this pit. You keep walking forward, there's another pit. That pit will kill you.
I remember in that same stage, there's a part where you go back to a corridor and you fall down another pit that has little clinging areas. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna cling here, and so you cling, and there's the electric things below you, and to your right is another corridor with an enemy coming down it that's pushing a block, And I'm thinking, oh, I guess I don't have time to jump to this thing yet, so I'll just wait for him to turn around.
Yeah.
So the enemy kind of keeps moving forward with his block, moving forward with his block, and then he throws the block at me and he goes down the pit. And then he charges me, and it knocks me off the thing and it kills me. And it just felt like, oh, that's what he's got to do? I didn't know I was supposed to like jump from there. It was kind of a weird moment.
Yeah.
He kind of slowly coming towards me.
The game's kind of filled with things like that. Things that seem like you can overcome them, but they hit you in such a way that knocks you back, and it's like everything's kind of designed to be a little bit annoying.
It has a lot more instant death traps than I'm used to in the Mega Man series, which kind of unbalances the gameplay a little bit. It feels like my life bar is a lot less relevant during most of the levels because there's so many things that kill you in one hit, and a lot of times they're kind of blind like that. Like a ladder won't be all the way up against a wall. It'll be slightly off the wall, so I'll dash to grab the ladder, and I'll go past the ladder and hit the wall and fall into the purple spikes or whatever of death. Also, invincibility, like your hit invincibility, does not protect you from the instant death stuff, which is kind of weird too. I mean, I guess that's not inherently bad, but it makes things a little rougher too. But what does also make things rougher and is inherently bad are the 10 to 15 second load times after you die.
Oof. It's that bad on the Wii U? I was playing on the PC and it wasn't that bad.
Oh, you're playing on the PC?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that kind of let me just sort of steam for a while after every death, thinking about how I died.
The point you raised about the ladder, I think I will connect to my discussion of the dash in the game, the dash mechanic. Mm-hmm. For instance, if you dash past a ladder, what you're supposed to do, at least in my reckoning from that description you gave, you're supposed to just dash right back. The way the dash works, you can pretty much dash nonstop back and forth. And I think that the dash mechanic is a key problem with the game that just kind of baffles me. It encourages you to dash frantically, like all the time. So like if you miss something when you're trying to jump and grab something and you miss it, you're supposed to just dash right back. Like, oh, I gotta dash, and just hope you'll get what you're looking for. It contradicts the typical flow of the levels of the combat. Typically in Mega Man, you shoot something from afar and you kill it. You might have a couple close range weapons, but most of the time you're shooting it from afar to kill it. And in this game, you're also shooting it from afar to like stun it. You can technically kill it if you shoot it a lot, but the most efficient way to do it is to stun a guy and then dash in to kill him. The problem with that is that if the enemy isn't stunned and you dash into it, you take damage. If you touch an enemy, you take damage. Even if you dash towards an enemy, but your dash ends before you touch him, and then you touch him afterwards, you'll take damage. Now, you can't just keep dashing, to kill him in that sense, but everything about the dashing, it tells you to get really close to touch the enemies, but there's so much danger in touching the enemies that you're frequently, at least I found myself frequently trying to do that. Like I try to shoot at the enemy to stun him and then jump and dash towards him. It felt like a bit of an imprecise art. And the problems with that are compounded by all these other gameplay design decisions, such as all the different pits and stuff you can fall into. If you're trying to jump and dash toward an enemy who's standing up on a pedestal, and on the sides of the pedestal is a bottomless pit that will kill you, I'm going to be dashing frantically back and forth. I don't want to fall into the pit, so I have to kind of dash at him. And if I get hit, you have to dash. And you can grab onto ledges, but you can't wall jump or anything. So if you're not at the top of the ledge, you're kind of in trouble.
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. It's because I sort of know what you mean. That it's kind of a staccato experience. Like you find yourself running into stuff a lot.
Yeah.
What I find is kind of contributes to that is the fact that your shots don't go through enemies for the most part unless you get like the red power thing. Yeah. What this means is that when you have like a couple enemies that are little enemies that are normally like for Mega Man, he'll just go pew pew pew, shoot them in the spot. In this case, like you'll shoot one and it'll go into its sort of vulnerable state, and then you can't shoot through it to get to the second one. So you'll have to kind of dash through the first one, but make it like a short dash, and not hit the second one. And this happens a lot. It makes it feel kind of like it's a little janky, like square peg. Like I'm not quite getting satisfaction from these enemies absorbing my shots all the time, like that. And like you said, you can kill them, but there's gameplay benefits to dashing through enemies. You get upgrades and stuff, and combos and things, and it just takes a lot less bullets.
I think that you should be able to kill the enemies like you kill them in Mega Man. You should be able to shoot them fairly easily and not have that elongated stun period in which you're required to dash them. I think that is like you said, that's kind of it makes it feel kind of janky. It's like I can't get through this quickly because I don't have the right power up. But there's like the power ups are time power ups that seem like an awkward mechanic to me. But if you were able to dash through to shoot those enemies normally like Mega Man, or if you were, dash through them just right, you can get a little more health or something. I think that would have helped it feel more natural. I would say that the dash is too mobile and not precise enough.
For a mechanic like that?
Yeah, I think that the dash should not have been you can hold the button for different lengths of time to vary the length of the dash. I don't like that at all. I think it should be a set distance, and I think you should only have one dash per jump. That would make it feel much more natural.
So you pretty much want Mega Man X.
Yeah. That's a better game.
You kill the enemies with your gun, you can have one dash per jump. It's a set distance.
Yeah, and if the dash actually dealt damage to an enemy, so you didn't if I dash toward the enemy but it's not ready for me to kill it, it's going to hurt me. I
had an issue very closely related to that of being immediately aware of which enemies are safe to dash into and which aren't. It's a little hard to tell sometimes in the middle of frantic stuff because they take on a hue, they take on a hue, they have little things floating around, but it's not always obvious. Some enemies are colored differently and stuff.
Yeah, I know that they're colored different hues because of the different power-ups that they give, but yeah. I thought that was really unnecessarily confusing because it would have been much more intuitive if they had a consistent color.
Because then you'd know it's safe to dash.
It's a much easier way to just visually scan them to say, regardless of what color the robot is, it's going to do this color when it's vulnerable. I think that would have been better.
Because it's not always immediately clear when it's safe to dash. You just have to sort of...
Yeah, some of the enemies are kind of yellowish, and when they kind of turn more yellow, I didn't notice it for a while.
It's more yellow.
Yeah, I played it after only playing a few levels. I was still wait, I don't get when these enemies are vulnerable, and then I guess there's those little yellow things floating around them, so that
What about a system kind of like Metroid Fusion where you kill the enemy and it transforms, and then that gives you life? You could still shoot through it, but it doesn't do damage anymore. Like in Metroid Fusion, you kill an enemy, it turns into the little blob thing, and the blob doesn't hurt you. You could just grab it basically. So then you'd be able to shoot through stuff, and I don't know. So I guess I haven't spoken a whole lot about my thoughts on Mighty Number 9. It was kind of a weird experience playing for me because I'm a lifelong Mega Man fan. I've been looking forward to this game. I'm a backer, so I got it for the Wii U, and it was sort of a mix to me. It was like an up and down kind of thing. I'd have minutes or whole levels where I was having a really good time. Everything was kind of working okay for me outside of a few little niggling things. I don't entirely agree about the dash mechanic being inherently flawed. I think they could have made it run smoother, but at the same time, I actually really appreciate just kind of the idea of giving me unlimited dashes. I think that's kind of a bold design decision, and it makes the game move very quickly to me. Every now and then there'd be a platforms that are moving and traps or whatever, but for the most part I feel like I'm kind of flying through stuff. I enjoyed the Robot Factory level. It's basically just running and gunning and dashing and shooting.
Was that the Sergeant level?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually my top level.
It's got interesting enough design. There's nothing too gimmicky about it, and there's no real, outside of a couple laser death beams every now and then, there's no real traps that are instant death. Stages like that, and I actually found out once I finally started beating bosses, which took a while because they have a lot of life and it's fairly difficult, and sometimes they have a really cheap move like Pyro with his instant kill attack, where he telegraphs in the first part of the fight by having different voice clips based on whether he's going to attack low or going to jump or going to explode, but then after that he kills you in one hit and you don't know what it is because there's dialogue going on during the battle that overrides his dialogue. So it's oh, what the heck. Anyway, once I finally started beating bosses, I found out that their weapons are actually pretty useful. The Drill Sergeant guy, I would switch to his sub-weapon for the entirety of the Hornet level and just kind of stuck with it. And even though it wasn't the boss weakness weapon, I appreciated its larger range, and I really appreciated that it's a lot easier to get weapon energy back, and that it kind of refills on its own a little bit like a Link Between Worlds. And what this does is it encourages the player to use their sub-weapons more, which is something I have to, I want to give them props for, because I think that's a good idea. I haven't played all the sub-weapons. I've only gotten 3 of them. But I did like the Hornet one, and I liked the gun one, and the tank one was kind of crazy. I didn't really know what I was doing with it, but it was sort of interesting in that it changes, Beck's legs to treads. So there were moments like that where I was enjoying myself, and then there were other moments where I was playing what we were already talking about with the instant death things, and where you're stumbling because you're running into the same enemy 2 or 3 times, and I gotta say I mean, the visuals are disappointing because the art for this game is quite good. You know, it's quite nice. I've looked at the art book and it's got like drawings of each of the bosses and like, you know, their transformations and stuff, and it looks good. But like the game itself, it's kind of this simple sort of Dreamcast-ish look, you know?
Yeah.
Like it looks kind of like not quite as good as GameCube, and the frame rate is really bad. Like it's normally feels like normally sub 30, but then whenever there's a lot going on, there's like, I don't know if this is the same in the PC version or the Wii U version, but like that part in the drilling level with the big drill chasing you and you're like blowing up boxes. I mean, it went down to like some serious Nintendo 64 levels.
Wow.
Like, I'm talking about teens or maybe even single digit stuff. It was like and that kind of extends to the music as well. I'm disappointed with the soundtrack, with just sort of like, I don't know, it's just kind of really backgroundy and very soft, and the voices are kind of weird and not very good.
Yeah, the voices. I think the one song that I like, I think the boss song is all right. It's kind of, you know, pumped up and exciting. Okay. But it also repeats for every boss, so it's, you know,
I did like what's his number 8's voice, and I like the drill sergeant's voice. I thought they sounded all right.
I thought, did you play the what's his name? Ari?
I played through his level, but I did.
Ari.
Yeah.
I thought his voice was all right too.
Okay. That was serviceable. I don't like the big fat guy's voice. He doesn't have a voice. Like whenever you select a level, he goes, all set then. It's like something like that. It's like this really stilted, like, all set then. Every time you start a level, he like kind of does this, like a stammer was written into the script. So he's like, all set then, or something like that.
Yeah, I have multiple problems with that line actually. First of all, it just sounds like kind of awkward and like stilted. Like for the line that the character's supposed to say when you're going off to the next mission, it should be like, yeah, go get him, or like.
Oh yeah, it should be exciting. It should be Star Foxy.
Yeah, and it's not at all. It's like uncertain.
You sure you want to play this game some more?
Yeah, exactly. But you know, beyond that, it also implies that there's something you could do to be more set. And there isn't. There's nothing you can do. You don't get upgrades.
Like a store or something.
There's nothing to do. There's no store. There's no nothing. So
it's like, what am I doing wrong, guy?
Yeah.
Tell me.
Yeah, I feel like the voice direction was the Achilles heel of the acting, because I feel like that actor specifically, a lot of his lines deviate a lot from the written dialogue. There's a lot of goofiness injected in those words that really go over the top. And most of the other actors don't quite do that. They more or less seem to be reading the script. But I think the problem with the characters, I would actually compare it to in Bungie Studios' game Destiny. They had Peter Dinklage, who's a famous actor. He was in Game of Thrones and stuff. They got him on to be a character, and everyone's really excited. But his performance ended up being really shockingly soulless. He was like our little robot buddy thing in the game. So people were like, "Wait, what? Peter Dinklage? What? You're horrible!" But then they got Nolan North to come in and did it, and it was like equally bad, because the problem is in the writing and the direction. If you tell someone to be a boring, soulless robot, I mean, that's kind of hard, right? I mean, that's kind of, if you look at Call's voice is robotic and lifeless. It sounds awkward and strange. I'm going to suspect that that's due to her being directed to be awkward and strange and robotic and lifeless. And I feel that that's what happened for most of the characters. That's just my speculation, but you know, the actual voice quality I think is okay. It's the performances are bad, but I think that's because of the direction they're being given. That's just my suspicion.
Yeah, you might be right. There, I noticed there was some weird inflection on specific words sometimes.
Yeah.
And well, not exactly related to the voice thing, but I did notice a lot of parts where the caption on screen would be missing a word or have a word that's different or something.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird too.
It just felt sloppy. It felt like if they didn't put a lot of attention into crafting those characters through their voices.
Well, I think it's just in general the cinematic elements of the game just don't really work.
No, not at all.
It's mainly the characters standing around in a lab, kind of. I mean, I guess that's kind of how Mega Man did it, but there was hardly any story in most of the Mega Man games, and the ones that did have story like that were like Mega Man 8 and Mega Man X5 and 6. And I mean, at that point, it's like, who cares?
Right.
Is that why we love Mega Man? I will say that I think Mighty Number 9 is not the worst Mega Man game. I think there are at least 2 or 3, probably more. I mean, I think this is better than like Network Transmission on the GameCube, you know?
Really?
Yeah, I mean, Network Transmission is kind of weird. I don't hate Mighty Number 9. I find it pretty disappointing in a lot of ways, but I've enjoyed, you know, I've had pockets of fun here and there. I've played several of the challenge stages, and they've been kind of enjoyable. There's one that kind of reminds me of Break the Targets with Super Smash Brothers, where you have kind of the same arena but different like weapons to go through it. I can see people that are into like high scores or leaderboards or whatever, you know, perfecting their runs and stuff.
Okay. I did not try the challenge mode. I only saw it when I was flipping around in the menu, like the menu screen, where it's like, okay, when I discovered that I could, you know, before choosing the next level, I could either look at Call or look at the professor. I'm like, oh, maybe there's something interesting to do here, and I quickly discovered that there was not. And I pressed A on the challenge mode, and it's like, do you want to quit the game to go to challenge mode? I was like, nah, forget this. So it just felt like
looking at Call isn't interesting.
No, it's not. I'm afraid.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so I haven't tried it. It might be good. I will say that I initially hated this game. I did hate this game very strongly, passionately, I would say. But after, you know, I've played each level now. I've beaten 4 of the bosses, and I don't hate it, but it's definitely a very bad game.
It's worth a why did they do that for you? I feel like it should have been much more than it was. Chris, do you know that? Have you been kind of following like the Kickstarter's sort of rise and fall for Mighty Number 9?
Not particularly. Tell me about it.
Well, I think everyone was really excited about this game at first, and I think where they really took a misstep was around the halfway point. They had decided to go all out with Mighty Number 9 stuff. Like they were planning an anime, they were planning a cartoon, like an actual Western cartoon. You can watch like a test animation of Beck with like English voice and stuff, like a commercial for it. You know, that's how forward they thought. They thought this was going to be this big old thing, and I don't think they crafted the amount of time into the game itself to make it run right. And I think part of that is because it was across so many platforms at once, or maybe part of it is because of just hubris, you know. Yeah. But eventually they started a second Kickstarter for Red Ash, which is supposed to be like a Mega Man Legends thing. And a lot of people were upset because they're like, hey, you didn't finish the first game yet. So at that point, people started turning on this Kickstarter. And when the game was kind of shown later and kept getting delayed, people just kind of gradually lost faith in it. So it's gotten a lot of negativity, which is why I really want to go into it with an open mind. And because I don't know, I don't want to be one of those people that just like jumps on the hate bandwagon. You know, I think there's enough of a hate bandwagon. But I mean, even with that said, and that I, you know, enjoyed certain levels and certain aspects of the game, there's still a lot of things that are disappointing about it. And it's kind of frustrating, but it is what it is, I guess.
My hate was honest and pure. It was from the very frustrating game elements, and I felt cheated of my gameplay. I felt like the skill that I thought I was building was continually shortchanged for a cheap death. I felt like the game just was not giving me a fair challenge. I thought generally speaking, the stages are kind of annoying and frustrating. They're sprinkled with these insta-deaths, which varies depending on the level. But as I played more, I started to appreciate a few more things. Like I think I liked the seismic boss, the Earth boss. I thought that was my favorite boss fight because it didn't have any insta-kills. It was very straightforward. All the moves he did were clearly telegraphed. Yeah. I didn't feel like that battle cheated me, but I felt like every other battle did. Maybe
I'm trying to remember some of the.
Maybe not the electric hornet, whatever. She was tough.
Like she kind of flipped upside down. But I think I couldn't quite get the mechanic of it down. But I think if you blow up enough of those things, you have the chance to dodge.
On the bosses, I will say that I really disliked the mechanic of having you damage them a certain amount and then you have to dash against them or else they regain that health. Mm-hmm. I really don't like that. I think that is unnecessarily punishing, especially given the difficulty of the fights. Because pretty much all the bosses are very difficult
They got some life, man.
yeah. And the thing is that they'll go into some sort of animation that takes them out of your range. So you might, deal damage to them so that they are vulnerable to your dash, but then they fly up away from you and you can't hit them. So they regain all that health. I think that that's unnecessarily punishing because of the high difficulty otherwise. Did you notice that sometimes when you dash, when you land, he'll stumble or stagger forward a little bit? Mm-hmm. And I felt to my death multiple times from that. Like, I don't know why that happens or what causes that to happen, but it does happen sometimes. And
yeah, there were a few spots where the controls had failed me, and I couldn't quite tell why. There was, I don't know. I think it might have had something to do with the input being delayed because of the frame rate or not registering right or what. I don't know.
That's why I would prefer a dash that is more discrete. So a dash that has a specific length and a specific speed. Maybe you can dash multiple times in the air. Maybe you get 2 dashes. I don't know. But I do think that having a more clearly defined dash would have helped that for me. And like I don't know what that stagger is when you land sometimes, but definitely getting rid of that.
You get knocked back more if you get hit while dashing.
Okay. I did like that after defeating some of the bosses, when you play certain levels, a boss that you've defeated will come and help you out.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
I like that too.
I did really like that. I kind of wish they did a little more with it, but because you can, you don't know which boss is going to be active in which level. If you could figure that out somehow, then you get more of a plan, which I think would be cool. So for instance, if one level's really hard, you knew what boss you have to beat to help you on that level, then you'd go beat that boss first and then go to that level next. Something like that I think could have been cool. So I
think it's the weakness weapon boss.
Is there a specific weakness? How do you figure that out?
Well, the game actually tells you after you beat a boss. It'll say in that level if you have that weakness weapon.
Oh, okay. Then I like that. I didn't realize that. I think it could have communicated that a little more clearly, but
yeah, you don't really know before you beat any of the bosses.
Oh, okay.
That was a cool thing. That was kind of the opposite of one of X6's horrible mechanics.
Yeah. We'll get to that at a future podcast for sure. But I think we were going to rank the stages. Did you want to discuss that?
I didn't have a solid ranking in mind, but my favorite one would probably be the same as yours. I like the weapons facility just because I had a good run there. It was the first boss that I actually beat, and it felt fairly fair to me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of my least favorite. I was not crazy about Mighty Number 8's level with the sniping thing.
Yeah.
It felt a little repetitive, but at the same time, it was less annoying than the instant death traps.
Right. But they did have instant death traps in that level.
Oh, yeah, they did. Maybe that one then, because I ended up getting killed once or twice, not having any idea what just happened.
It was very repetitive. They started repeating rooms, which surprised me.
It's because the whole level is circular.
Oh.
Yeah, it makes a loop.
Okay, then maybe I didn't figure it out because I kept, going in one direction, and how do you beat that level then?
Well, you just chase him down a few times, and then he spawns in like the boss room, and you go fight him. Or he spawns in one of the rooms as a boss, and you go fight him.
It seemed very long and repetitive. I thought it was a decent concept. I liked that there wasn't a lot of instant death, but when they brought it out, I died instantly, and then I started back at the beginning, and I was like, oh, well, I'm not going to do this again.
Yeah, there's no checkpoint either, which is kind of a problem.
Yeah, I think either that or I also really didn't like the highway level.
I didn't play that one.
It if you touch the ground, you die, and you're going to touch the ground.
Death.
Yeah. I think the last thing I'd say about the stages then is that they've each got kind of a gimmick that affects your movement, and I think that is compounded by the difficulties that I think are inherent in the dash mechanic.
Because you don't get a solid grip on your control?
Yeah, the dash mechanic is inherently imprecise, and that's what I don't like about it, because a lot of these things kind of demand precision. So, like in the air level, there's the air that's constantly blowing you one way, which was great in Mega Man 9. Mega Man 9, it felt like it was you could tell exactly how it was affecting your movement, but in Mighty Number 9, it feels much less precise. Like when you dash in midair, it'll like send you up for some reason.
Oh yeah, I died like that. That was when the wind was blowing upward.
I mean, maybe I'm misremembering this, but I thought that when I jump to the side and you dash as well, it also sends you up a bit. But anyway, there was also the level with the ice world, slippery ice.
Oh, you know what? I didn't do the ice world.
Oh, you didn't? No.
I should have.
Yeah.
I may have been too frustrated from some of the others.
And there was the water. Well, was the water in the ice world?
Probably, because I
it must have been
water.
Yeah, it was in the ice world. Oh yeah, in the fire stage there was all the.
There was the burning areas.
Yeah, the burning stuff, and I liked in the fire stage how near the end there was like the big stretch where it's, at least on paper, like it's supposed to be exciting because all the things are blowing up.
Yeah.
But I tried to dash all the way through it, but you kind of get to this point where these things it kind of forces you to slow down.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a way to do it because these without slowing down, because there's these balls, fireballs that fall from above, and you kind of have to stop to let them pass or to shoot them. I mean, maybe there's some weapon that allows you to go through it without stopping, which would be pretty cool, but
actually, I hear this game is already getting some decent speedrunners.
Yeah, that's another thing I'll say positively for the game is that I think like with a tool assist speed run or like with someone who's really, really good at it, I think it actually probably would be pretty fun. But I think that bar of performance is just way too high to be enjoyable to most people. I consider myself pretty good at games. I like hard games a lot, but the difficulty in this isn't fair. Like, I think that the imprecision of the dash mechanic, the cheap deaths, the insta-kills, particularly with the bosses where they do moves that doesn't seem really clear what they're going to do, so you have to keep dying and dying and dying until you finally figure it out. And then I think that all of that combined makes it so that you have to slog through a lot of unenjoyable gameplay to get to the point where you would be like good enough to feel like it's a fun challenge. So it's not learning. It isn't fun. I almost, after playing the first 3 levels, I'm like, this game is not fun at all. I don't want to play it again. But I kept playing it because I wanted to, get to know it a little better for this podcast. So I think it comes down to the fair challenge, the fun challenge. Challenge can be fun, but it can also be punishing and not fun at all. So I think that most of the challenge falls into that frustrating, not fun category until, I suppose, you reach that hypothetical level of skill where you're really good at it and you can get through levels really quickly and you know exactly what to do. Like, I could see that actually being pretty fun in this game. Like, I'll give it that. But
I've had moments where I feel like I was just kind of crushing stuff and doing well and things, and once I slowed down, things kind of fell apart. Oh well. Well, we should go to viewer comments, right? Listener comments.
Yeah.
We should go to listener comments.
Yeah, let's see what the viewers say.
So that is Mighty Number 9. Let us know what you think about it in this podcast section. Let us know what you think about Zelda. And as promised last time, we're going to bring up a couple reader comments from the last podcast and see what they had to say. So Star Fox Hero SJ says, I've actually been thinking about changing my username to defend Star Fox Zero. I guess they already did that. I don't want people to think that I'm just some apologetic fanboy. I agree with a few points on either side of the debate, but overall, I think I agree more with Matthew. I really liked this game. No, it isn't as good as Star Fox 64, but I really enjoyed it. I actually agree with Chris on the controls for barrel rolls being annoying. I also disagree with you on the Zonus level. I really enjoyed the gyro wing, and I thought that direct eye was cute. Not as cute as Rebot from Guard, but still cute. Anyways, yeah, good game. I want to see more Star Fox. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. All right, thanks Star Fox Hero SJ for your comment.
Yeah, Rebot in Star Fox Guard is actually very cute. I like Rebot.
I would like to see more of him.
Although he should have been called Ribot.
Yeah, that's weird how they did that. Here's another guy. He's got 2 cents about Star Fox Zero. Austin Bricker. He says, I agree with a lot of points you guys brought up. I felt the bosses in this game were pretty weak and had some annoying thing tacked on. Yep. Like time limits or that stupid pulse thing in the Akarosa fight.
Yeah, he knows what's up.
I still like the Akarosa. My other big complaint is that you can't play through the game picking and choosing your path like in Star Fox 64.
Yep.
Many of the alternate paths aren't available until you finish the game or unlock some new vehicle feature. I found myself just choosing levels from the menu rather than playing through entire runs. That being said, I like the game more than expected, especially the multiplayer. Some of my friends who aren't very familiar with video games can play as player 1 and only have to deal with 2 buttons, while people who have played Star Fox before can control the R-Wing and have a more classic experience. Yep, so thanks for that comment. So we got some of our readers seem to be squeezing some fun out of this turnip, right? Squeeze some fun.
Right? Wait, what's the turnip?
It's like a squeeze blood out of a turnip or squeeze water out of a stone, or what is it? How's it go? Squeeze blood?
No, squeeze blood out of a stone. I get that, but
squeeze blood out of a turnip.
But But I mean, turnips have juice in them, so if you squeeze them, you get something out. But a rock, you don't get anything out of.
I don't remember if it's a rock or a turnip. All right, so leave a comment on if it's a rock or a turnip, and we might read it next time. We didn't get enough comments last time because, like, we got 1,000 people viewing it, so maybe more people could listen to our voices already. I think everyone was too excited about watching E3 stuff.
Yeah, probably.
To listen to us talk about a game that was like 2 months old.
Now we have a couple of current games to talk about.
Yes, they're super current.
Yep.
Mighty Number 9.
Yep.
And Zelda, which isn't even out yet. That's how current it is. This guy says we need to put podcasts on a podcast audio only format.
Yeah, I've been setting up the repository for podcasts to be distributed on iTunes and Google Play. So we'll be having those up probably in the next week, I want to say.
Okay, well, thanks again for joining us, everybody. We'll be back next month with more video game talk. And yeah, don't forget to comment and should I say like and subscribe? Is that like a thing that people do? Like our Facebook, blah, 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 blah. Subscribe to our breath thing. Tweet our twit. Edit that part out.
Is that inappropriate? I don't know.
You know, it's like they say at the end like us or blah blah, blah blah blah, blah 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 blah, right?
I think people usually tune out when the podcasts start doing that. So.
Oh, okay. All right, don't do any of that stuff then.
No, yeah, don't subscribe and don't like us, I guess.
Well, you can like us a little.
A little bit, if you want.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We're gonna leave now, so
okay.
Have fun.
Okay, bye, guys.
Bye. Yeah, I'm usually talking over that. Sometimes stupid people say stupid things, and we sing a song about them. It's called What Do They Do? It's really good.
Yeah,
it's really pretty.
I agree.
All right, let's see.
Yeah, you got some good backing singers on that one.
Oh yeah. We hired like 6 other people to do that.
Yeah.
They charged me like $30 an hour, and it took them each 5 hours. So I think I got a pretty good deal.
Yeah. It's a steal.
What am I looking for? Oh, I'm looking over here. Hey, I saw Finding Dory.
Oh yeah, that was good, huh?
I thought it was pretty good. You might dislike it a lot.
Whoa. Why do you think that?
I don't know. I can never predict what you like or don't like. Sometimes I like really like something, and you're like, oh, this is terrible. And sometimes I don't like something, and you're like, oh, this is terrible. No, I just picking.
I mean, I thought like Monsters U was.
Yeah, Monsters U was. That was pretty good. But I typically like most Pixar movies better than you. I'm struggling to think of a Pixar movie that you like more than I like.
Bug's Life.
I mean, I would give that like an A-. Even though it's kind of on the lower end of Pixar movies, it's still like I really like a lot of Pixar movies.
Yeah. After playing the game more, though, I started to.
What was that sound?
It was just a sound I make.
There was a squeak.
Yeah.
That was great.
I squeak sometimes. It's
okay. I saw a little bit of Planes.
Oh, I watched that.
Oh, you did? How was it?
It was really bad.
I was in the swimming pool and I watched like the middle 30 minutes of it.
Yeah? What'd you think?
It was at a hotel. They had Planes showing as their swimming pool movie.
Yeah.
I didn't really see there's like a luchador plane and he was trying to woo the sexy girl plane.
Yeah.
And he like sang a song, and at one point they were doing like a race. I'm trying to remember what else happened. There were a lot of cars for a movie about planes. There were a lot of cars in there.
Yeah, I mean they were just trying to tie it into the brand, obviously.
Oh, okay. So there's every vehicle. They at one point they had like an aircraft carrier, and it had eyes too.
Yep.
So like, does every vehicle just have a soul, or like?
Yeah. No, I mean,
like how does that aircraft carrier come into being? Like, are there 2 aircraft carriers that are in love, and they have a baby aircraft carrier?
It's probably constructed because they've established that these vehicles all have parts, and the parts can be replaced.
Yeah, but they have organic parts too. They're like cyborgs. They have like tongues.
Well, there's only so much of that's been,
They don't really confirm. They don't say like my tongue is inside my skull.
Yeah. But so
can you imagine if that was the dialogue in the movie? Like talking about their organs and their skulls. Because carbon-based life forms do that all the time.
But, okay, so the theory that I had with my friend Renee was that the Cars world is basically post-apocalyptic, all the humans are dead, and
the cars have sort of become sentient somehow?
Yeah.
So where did the tongues come from? Were they built into the cars originally, or?
Well, they are probably modified by the cars to try to
taste
resemble their creators.
That's creepy, man. So this extends to planes too, same universe.
Yeah.
This is the Cars-averse, the planes-averse.
The only organic material that we see in any Cars or Planes movie is plants. So there are plants.
Yeah.
But we never see any animals.
We don't really see bugs, I don't think.
No, actually in Cars, I believe Cars 1, you see tiny little VW bugs.
Oh, you're right.
Oh,
that raises all sorts of questions.
Yeah. At some point in the history of the Cars universe, these vehicles were constructed because this is clearly Earth. It's clearly taking place in, cities that were made by humans, because all these cities are still pretty much designed for humans. They've just been modified to accommodate these vehicles, these cars or whatever have you. So like the room's a little wider and more spacious, and they've widened certain doorways and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's all kind of been adapted by the cars.
So would there be a lot more roads? You're right in that it feels like it's built for people rather than cars.
Right.
Or cards, I guess.
Well, you would think they would make more roads, yeah. But generally it looks like the roads are about as frequent as they are in real life in the current day. So maybe I feel like they're still held to the past by some emotional baggage, I guess.
That was the theme of the first Cars movie.
Yeah, it was.
Which explains why this world is not like a giant metropolis like in the other classic animated post-apocalyptic robot-filled world, Robots.
Yeah, that movie was terrifying.
These movies are really scary, man. They need to stop doing them.